What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, right now, we are on the eve of Trump's tariffs. He's expected to put 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, as well as 10% tariffs on China. And these tariffs are punitive due to the fact of him not appreciating the current trade terms and negotiations with these countries, as well as backlash for lack of effort to stem drugs coming into America. And this is really interesting on a number of fronts, but these tariffs are definitely going to have an effect. These, like I said, these economies are heavily reliant on America trade. All three of these countries have had, because what they're basically doing is they're selling into the American market. They're selling to the American consumer. These are basically the end user is the American, but the producer is foreign. And this really makes me think back about just the fundamental question that many people have throughout history, and that is the fundamental role of America in this world. It's very interesting because I think that a lot of foreign countries think of America as this. It gives them this status, like they're beyond, like Americans are beyond human, and it's ironic because most Americans are not globalists whatsoever. They're actually heads down, earnest people that's just looking to eke out a living in a country of 300 million people that is highly competitive. They're not thinking about what's going on in the Middle East or China. They understand it's a world out there, but they're far more concerned about achieving their goals within America than some desire to remake the world. And this isolationist mentality has always been endemic to Americans, and for many reasons. One of them is the liberty that Americans have enjoyed relative to other countries. Americans, for the most part, are hegemons. They're global hegemons, and they never really had to worry about Mexico invading or Canada invading, such as America has done to them. And they hadn't had be in a situation, where you got the Congo or 20th century Europe, where one day things are hunky dory going the longest plan, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of war and intense violence beyond your control. Most of the power, the American government have a monopoly on power with inside the country. So as long as you're aligned with the American government, there were no problem. There wasn't a power struggle per se. Democracy has made the country very stable. So Americans, as I said, they don't have that awareness of the world. But through its own ambitions at home, domestically, and its growth and development, America has become very powerful. And through world wars, which indirectly threaten its security. You may say, with the Japanese taking over Asia or the possibility of Hitler taking over Europe. Through these acts, America had the First World War, and remember they pulled back from the First World War with the League of Nations, and then they had the Second World War, and then they took ownership of a leadership role during and after the World War II. And this was because America was so powerful, and it was one of the countries that greatly benefited during the war because they were producing and the fighting wasn't on their home front. And through this situation, America was able to create alliances and a structure where we talk about geopolitics. They created a structure where they will benefit from inevitable consequences to come. So America has taken its role, and what it has done is taken the rich country that it has at home and this resource rich country it has at home, leverage these alliances, and say, look, guys, we'll be your customer. We'll be your customer. You don't have to worry as much about security, and it basically put these governments in the world, I believe, on autopilot. They stopped striving. One, it was easier not to compete, and two, maybe there was concerns that if they got too big for britches, America might try to come down hard on them, as they done with Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Now, say what you will, but this has been to their detriment. So that one president who danced to his own tune comes into office and he's threatening to cut off the global economy, for which he's not concerned because he feels as though America, despite all of its prosperity, has been hollowed out. And one can make that strong assumptions. American debt is going higher and higher. Deficit is going higher and higher. Products. Americans don't buy American products. These products are produced in many countries overseas. And this is why many Americans voted for Donald Trump, is because they feel as though American leadership has outsourced their livelihood, which has caused them to have an ever increasing cost of living, despite lower cost of products at the store relative to their production value. They can't afford them because they don't have job opportunities to earn what some would say is a living wage. So you have this contention domestically where Americans are seeking to increase their quality of life, and you have a president saying, I know how to do that. And then you have these countries overseas that have been lackadaisical for decades in ensuring the vitality of their own nation. And this is where you see great leadership separate. Does the governments get fat and they sit back and they take these benefits and attend balls and buy fancy luxury cars and have European shopping sprees? Or are these governments continuously advancing and honing the skills of their nation? Basically, are they making hay while the sun shines? Of course, I think a great example of that would be a Singapore. It will be a China. China understands that this is a benefit, and China don't want to be pushed around by America. And China has, more than any country I'm seeing right now, has focused to achieve parity, but they understand that they have to run at a pace that is friendly with America in the short term, because they think in the long term they'll be able to pass America, and that's to be said. But Mexico and Canada, we can both say they have set back and put things in autopilot, and now they are facing the consequences of this. Canada pretty much acts as if it's a territory of America. No defense, relatively speaking. Its trade is highly reliant on America. It practices no real adventurous foreign policy. And in Mexico, as I said, they've rolled on the back of things such as NAFTA, North American Free Trade agreements, from which American companies go over there. I believe it was GM. I think it was GM. If you look for exporters, automobile exporters, America wouldn't be a top automobile exporter. But you know who is a top automobile exporter? Mexico. They're making American cars in Mexico, selling it to American consumer. And this has been a great benefit in the Mexican government. Can you say they've truly invested thoroughly in their country? Some people can say yes, some people can say no. I'm not in the closed room, so it's not for me to say. It's for the people. But there are articles coming out right now of protests in Sinaloa because the Mexican government has let organized crime, or let the gangs and cartels get out of hand, and people are suffering. And they want Donald Trump to send troops down to quell the violence in the Sinaloa region. And I say all this to say this, right? You can't have it both ways. And it's human nature. One thing that I've realized about people is there's the internal struggle. It's the internal struggle to get the most for giving the least. And that is has always been the human paradigm. Is people constantly want everything at the expense of nothing. And this is the overcoming this challenge and finding that proper balances of desires and outputs and productivity um, has been the journey of humankind, right? And now we're at a situation where you can't ask America to be both. I don't think domestically or globally. Should American people say they want America to be their hero, the great purveyor of peace, implement order, structure for trade, commerce, economics, the freedom of trade, commerce, and economics, to facilitate this trade at the American expense, with American ships patrolling international waterways when countries get out of line, such as Iraq invading Kuwait or threatening to invade Saudi Arabia, bring the Americans in. When you have Gaza, remember, it was Americans that stopped Gaza. For all intents and purposes, it was Donald Trump threats that stopped Gaza. You have the Ukrainian people fighting for their independence. It's Americans supporting the Ukrainians that are fighting for their independence. And it goes both ways, of course. America has its actors in the world as well. But America's constantly I remember seeing this when I was overseas. When things were down and people were oppressed, they screamed out for America. You can't ask for that and then turn around and call America the great abuser. You can't want a benign America. You understand, leadership is leadership. Either people want American leadership or they don't want American leadership. And if you don't want American leadership, you don't tell America you don't want its leadership. You become a better, stronger leader than America. That is how you prevent American leadership. It is the only way to prevent American leadership. So I just think we call this out because this weekend those tariffs are coming down. And truthfully, I don't know if Trump do or don't care. So we're all in for this ride. But the point of the matter is a lot of governments have been getting off real easy. Real easy. And that's why I say I stay out of politics once again. Because it's a position or an institution that sometimes don't attract the best. It don't attract, let's say, the most benevolent of us. So we'll see how these tariffs go. But once again, you can't ask for America to be both. America can't be the purveyor of peace and benign. It's contradictory. If it's going to be for it to instill peace, it must be able to inflict violence and domination and control and power. And for it to be benign, it can't be your largest customer. So those are my thoughts. Comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Let me know if I'm missing any stories this week that you'd like to hear about. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.